The gavel didn't make a sound because there was no judge present, just the heavy, suffocating silence of my mother's living room. My sister, Brenda, stood by the mahogany desk, clutching a single piece of paper like it was a holy relic. She didn't look like the sister I grew up with. Her eyes were hard, calculating, and filled with a triumph that made my stomach turn. "It's all mine, Maya," she said, her voice devoid of any grief. "The house, the savings, the land, Mom left it all to me. You were always the wanderer, the one who left. I'm the one who stayed. I'm the one who gets the reward." I stood there, my boots still caked with the mud from the cemetery where we had buried our mother just 4 hours ago. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't about the money, it was about the erasure of my existence. According to the document Brenda held, I was a ghost in my own family. But as she began to gloat about the new renovations she was already planning, I noticed something. A small blue corner of an envelope was caught in the underside of Mom's old sewing machine, a machine Brenda had just tried to shove into a donation box. She didn't see it. She was too busy pouring herself a glass of Mom's vintage sherry to celebrate her newfound fortune. She had no idea that that tiny blue scrap of paper would eventually lead to a revelation so dark it would tear our family's history apart. She thought she had won. She thought the Wanderer had no claim. But in 48 hours, that hidden letter would reveal a secret that turned her inheritance into a legal and moral prison. I am currently sitting on the floor of my childhood bedroom, surrounded by boxes that Brenda told me I had to fill and remove by sunset. The air in this house used to smell like lavender and baking bread. Now it smells like dust and betrayal. Every time I hear Brenda's heels clicking on the hardwood floors downstairs, I feel a fresh wave of nausea. The conflict is sharp and jagged. My mother passed away after a short battle with cancer. I had flown back from my job in the city to nurse her during her final 3 months. I slept on a cot by her bed. I gave her the morphine. I held her hand until the very last second. Brenda? Brenda showed up for the important visits, the ones where she could take photos of herself helping for her social media. Now the funeral is over, and Brenda has produced a will that supposedly leaves me with nothing but sentimental items. No house, no part of the family farm, no share of the life insurance. She claims Mom changed her mind in the final weeks because I was too unstable with my freelance lifestyle. "It's for your own good, Maya," Brenda told me this morning while sipping coffee from Mom's favorite mug. "I'll keep the family legacy alive." The injustice is a cold wheat in my chest. I know my mother. She was a woman of deep fairness. She used to say, "Maya is my spirit and Brenda is my anchor. I need both to stay afloat." For her to leave me with 0 is a logical impossibility, but the lawyer Brenda hired is a shark and the paperwork looks disturbingly official. I'm being treated like a trespasser in the house I grew up in. I see Brenda looking at the old oak trees outside like they are dollar signs. She doesn't care about the legacy, she cares about the liquidation. But as I pack my old books, my eyes keep drifting back to that sewing machine in the hallway. Something is calling to me, a lingering whisper from a mother who knew exactly what her eldest daughter was capable of.
To understand why this hurts so much, you have to understand the world Mom built for us. We grew up on the outskirts of a small town in Vermont. The house was an old Victorian, full of creaky floorboards and secret nooks. Our backyard was an endless stretch of rolling hills and apple orchards. My father died when I was 7, and Mom became everything to us. Mom was a seamstress. She didn't just mend clothes, she told stories with her needle. I can still hear the rhythmic whir, click, whir of her 1950s Singer sewing machine. It was the heartbeat of the house. I'd sit at her feet sorting buttons by color, pearl, tortoiseshell, navy, and gold, while she worked on wedding gowns for the local girls. "Maya," she'd say, her eyes focused on the stitch, "a seam is only as strong as the thread you don't see. Remember that. The things people hide are often the things holding the whole garment together." I was the daughter who followed her around, learning the names of wildflowers and the way the light changed before a storm. I was the one who helped her press the fabric. Brenda was different. Brenda was older by 4 years and always had her eyes on the horizon. She hated the smell of thread and the smallness of our town. She wanted to be a high-powered executive. She wanted wealth. Mom worked herself to the bone to pay for Brenda's expensive business school. I stayed local for college, working at a bakery so I could be home to help Mom with her knees when they started to swell. We were happy in our own quiet way. I remember the smell of cinnamon and damp earth in the autumn. I remember Mom laughing as we tried to make apple cider in the old press. "This is your home, Maya," she told me once, patting the porch railing. "No matter where you go in the world, these trees will always know your name. I've made sure of that." Trust was the foundation of our lives. I never questioned Brenda's ambition, and she never questioned my loyalty. Or so I thought. But looking back, I realized the anchor was already beginning to rust. Brenda started visiting less and less as she moved up the corporate ladder. She stopped calling on Sundays. When she did come home, she looked at Mom's old house with a mix of pity and disgust. "You should sell this place, Mom," Brenda would say, tapping her manicured nails on the kitchen table. "It's a money pit. You could get a nice condo in a gated community." "I don't want a condo, Brenda. I want to hear the wind in the orchards." Mom's attachment to the house was emotional. Brenda's was transactional. I didn't see the danger then. I thought it was just a difference in personality. I didn't realize that for Brenda, our family history was just a series of assets waiting to be converted into cash. I didn't realize that she was already planning for a world where Mom was gone and I was an obstacle. The red flags started appearing about a year ago when Mom's health first began to dip. She started having memory lapses, or at least that's what Brenda told me over the phone. "Maya, you really should let me handle the finances from now on. Mom is getting confused. She almost paid the property tax twice last month. I've set up a power of attorney to protect her." I felt a twinge of unease. Mom was 80, but her mind was usually sharp as a needle. But since I lived 3 hours away, I trusted Brenda. Brenda was the business genius after all. When I did visit, I noticed Mom seemed quieter. She wouldn't look me in the eye when Brenda was in the room. One afternoon, while Brenda was out running errands, I found Mom in her sewing room, staring at a blank piece of paper. "Mom, you okay?" I asked, kneeling beside her. "I signed something, Maya," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Brenda said it was for the insurance. But her face, she looked so much like her father when he was angry. I'm scared I made a mistake." "What did you sign?" Before she could answer, Brenda walked in. The atmosphere in the room instantly shifted from warm to freezing. "Time for your nap, Mom," Brenda said, her voice dripping with a fake, sugary sweetness that didn't reach her eyes. "Maya, don't tire her out with questions. You know how she gets episodes now." Favoritism and neglect are a toxic mix. Brenda started controlling who could visit the house. She told our neighbors that Mom was too fragile for company. She told me not to come down certain weekends because Mom needed absolute rest. The behavior changes in Brenda were subtle at first. She started talking about the house in the past tense. She started cataloging the antique furniture while Mom was still in the next room. "That sideboard is worth at least $5,000, Brenda muttered, snapping a photo of it. "Brenda, Mom is right there," I hissed. "She can't hear me, Maya. She's in her own world. Someone has to be practical." The neglect was the hardest part. I'd find Mom's water glass empty. I'd find her medication pill box disorganized. When I pointed it out, Brenda would flip the script and blame me. "If you cared so much, you'd move back here permanently and quit that art stuff," Brenda would sneer. "I'm the only one actually doing the work here. You're just a guest." The emotional imbalance was clear. Brenda was the savior and I was the burden. She created a narrative where Mom was helpless and I was useless, positioning herself as the only person Mom could trust. I felt the distance growing between me and my own family. I felt like I was being pushed out of the inner circle while Mom was still breathing. I should have checked the papers then. I should have looked at the sewing machine sooner. The conflict reached a boiling point during the last month of Mom's life. I had moved back into the house, and the tension between Brenda and me was like a physical wall. We stopped talking. We communicated via sticky notes on the fridge. Brenda began making blatant moves. She brought a friend over who turned out to be a real estate appraiser. "What is he doing here, Brenda?" I demanded in the kitchen. "Just getting an estimate for the estate planning," she said, her voice cold. "Not that it's any of your business. I'm the executor." "Since when?" "Since Mom realized you can't even manage your own rent, let alone a 100-acre farm." The stakes increased significantly when I found Mom crying one night. She was clutching her old wedding ring. "She took it, Maya," Mom sobbed. "She took the key to the safe deposit box. She said it was to keep the jewelry safe, but your grandmother's pearls were in there. They were for you." I confronted Brenda the next morning. It was an explosion of suppressed rage. "Give her the key back, Brenda, now." "Sit down, Maya," Brenda said, calmly sipping her tea. "You're being dramatic. Mom is losing her grip. She doesn't need pearls, she needs care, which I am paying for. That jewelry is an asset for her end-of-life expenses." "You're a liar. I saw the bank statements. Mom has plenty of savings." "Had, Maya, had." That was the moment I realized Brenda had been draining the accounts. She wasn't just managing the money, she was absorbing it. Every action she took was clear now. She was clearing the path. The day Mom died was the most stakes-heavy moment of my life. Brenda wasn't in the room. She was on the phone in the hallway, talking to a contractor about tearing down the old barn. I was the one who whispered, "I love you," as Mom took her final breath. As soon as the hospice nurse left, Brenda's grief lasted exactly 10 minutes. Then she pulled out a folder. "Okay, here's the will," she said, her voice brisk. "I'm the sole beneficiary. You have 30 days to get your things. I've already listed the house as coming soon on the internal realtor network." "Mom died 2 hours ago," I screamed. "Business doesn't wait for feelings, Maya. You should learn that." The betrayal was total. She had used the final months to forge or coerce a new will, while I was busy actually caring for our mother. She had turned Mom's death into a business merger. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of her greed. I had no money for a lawyer, no proof of her fraud, and no place to go. I was losing my mother and my home in the same breath. 3 days after the funeral, the 30-day clock was ticking loudly. Brenda was already tagging furniture with keep or sell stickers. I was in the hallway staring at Mom's old sewing machine. Brenda had dragged it out of the sewing room, ready to send it to a local charity shop. "That's a piece of junk," Brenda said, walking past me with a box of Mom's clothes. "The motor is shot. I'm donating it today." "No," I said, my voice firm. "I want it. It's a sentimental item, right? The will says I get those." Brenda rolled her eyes. "Fine, take the heavy piece of metal. It fits your starving artist aesthetic." I dragged the machine into my room. I didn't care about the motor. I just wanted to touch something Mom had touched. As I was cleaning the dust from the base, I noticed the tension was off. The small storage compartment where Mom kept her extra bobbins was stuck. I pried it open with a butter knife. Inside, there was a bobbin of bright blue silk thread, and underneath it, tightly rolled and secured with a piece of lace, was a letter. My heart hammered against my ribs. I unrolled the paper. It was Mom's handwriting, shaky but unmistakably hers. The date was from just 2 weeks before she passed. "To my Maya. If you are reading this, it means I am gone, and Brenda has done exactly what I feared. She thinks she is the only one with a plan, but she forgets that I taught her everything she knows about hiding seams. Maya, I never signed a new will. The will she showed you is a forgery. She brought a man here and told me he was a doctor, but I saw his notary stamp in his pocket. I refused to sign. She became angry, a lot angry, Maya. She doesn't know that I kept the real will, the one your father and I wrote together, in a place she would never look because she hates clutter. The letter directed me to the old barn, the one Brenda was planning to tear down, specifically to the third floorboards under the winter grain silo. But there was more. The letter contained a second piece of paper, a list of bank account numbers, and a secret password. Brenda thinks she drained me dry, but she only found the accounts I let her see. The only accounts I let her see. Your father and I set up a trust for you in a credit union 3 towns over. It's for the house, Maya. It's to save the orchard. I felt a surge of hope so intense I burst into tears. I wasn't just a wanderer with nothing. My mother had anticipated Brenda's greed. She had turned her sewing machine, the thing Brenda considered junk, into a silent messenger of justice. I called an old friend from high school, Leo, who was now a lawyer specializing in estate fraud. "Leo, I found something," I whispered into the phone. "I need you to come over, now, and bring a camera." Suspense was at an all-time high. I had to keep the letter hidden from Brenda while I looked for the real will. I had 24 hours before the contractors arrived to demolish the barn. The clock wasn't just ticking, it was screaming.
The next morning was a nightmare of timing. The demolition crew was scheduled for 8 a.m. Brenda was already up, drinking a protein shake and looking triumphant as she watched the yellow bulldozer rumble up the driveway. "Bye-bye, eyesore," Brenda chirped, looking out the window. "Once that barn is gone, the property value jumps by 20%. It's cleaner for the buyers." I had to get into that barn, but Brenda was hovering, watching me like a hawk. "Why are you dressed like that, Maya?" she asked, eyeing my work boots and overalls. "Just taking one last look at the orchard," I lied, my heart racing. "I want to take some photos for my art." "Whatever, just be out of the way when the crew starts. I don't need a lawsuit because you got hit by a falling beam." I slipped out the back door and ran toward the barn. The air was crisp, the smell of old hay and dry wood filling my lungs. I climbed the ladder to the hayloft, my hands shaking. I counted the floorboards. 1, 2, 3. I pried them up with a crowbar I'd hidden earlier. Underneath was a metal box, cool to the touch. Inside was the original, legal, notched and witnessed will, and something else, a digital voice recorder. I hit play. Mom's voice filled the barn. "Brenda, I know you're listening to this eventually. I know you're trying to make me sign those papers. I'm recording this so Maya knows the truth. You're threatening to put me in a state home if I don't give you the farm, but I won't do it. This house belongs to both my girls, and the land stays as it is. Maya is the one who stayed when it mattered. You only stayed for the money." I heard Brenda's voice in the background, muffled but clear. "Just sign the damn paper, Mom. You're dying anyway. What does it matter?" I felt sick, but I had it, the proof of coercion and the real will. I looked out the barn window. The bulldozer was starting its engine. The demolition foreman was talking to Brenda. "Maya, get out of there," Brenda shouted from the porch. "They're starting." I scrambled down the ladder, the metal box clutched to my chest. I made it out just as the foreman signaled the driver. "Stop," I yelled, waving my arms. "Maya, don't be a child." Brenda marched toward me, her face red with embarrassment in front of the crew. "Get out of the way." "No," I said, standing my ground. "This barn isn't being touched, and neither is this house. I'm the executor. Move." "You're a fraud, Brenda," I said, my voice cold and clear, "and the sheriff is already on his way." The internal struggle was gone. I felt the strength of my mother in every fiber of my being. The anticipation of the reveal was a drumbeat in my ears. The demolition crew turned off the engines, sensing the shift in power. Brenda froze, her eyes darting to the box in my arms. She knew the anchor was about to snap. The scene was perfect for a showdown. The demolition crew stood in a semicircle, their hard hats in their hands. Leo, my lawyer friend, pulled up in his car, followed closely by a sheriff's cruiser. Brenda's realtor had also arrived early to oversee the site prep. "What is the meaning of this?" Brenda demanded, trying to maintain her professional persona. "Sheriff, my sister is mentally unstable. She's trespassing on my property." "Is it your property, Brenda?" I asked, stepping forward. I opened the metal box and pulled out the recorder. I hit the volume to max. The sound of Brenda's voice, cold, cruel, and threatening mom, blasted across the yard. The neighbors who had gathered at the fence gasped. The realtor looked like she wanted to melt into the ground. "That's a deep fake. She's using AI," Brenda screamed, but her voice was cracking. "And this notary stamp?" Leo asked, stepping up and handing the real will to the sheriff. "This is the original will, dated 2 years ago, witnessed by the local librarian and the pastor. It's never been revoked. And the will you filed, Brenda? We've already contacted the notary listed on it. He's ready to testify that he never signed it." You bitch!" Brenda lunged at me, but the sheriff stepped in, his hand on his belt. "Easy there, miss," the sheriff said. "We've got a lot of questions about these recordings and the end-of-life care your mother received." "I did everything for her," Brenda shrieked, the mask finally falling off completely. Her face was contorted with greed and desperation. "She was a useless old woman who didn't know what she had. I deserved that money. I'm the one who's going to make this town worth something." "You deserved nothing," I said, looking her in the eye. "You treated Mom like a liquidation sale. You tried to erase me because you were jealous that she loved my art more than your assets." Heavy dialogue followed, as Leo explained the legal reality to Brenda in front of everyone. "Brenda, by filing a forged will and attempting to demolish an asset of an estate that is currently in dispute, you've committed multiple felonies. And since you've been draining Mom's accounts, we're looking at elder abuse and grand larceny." The emotional explosion from the neighbors was immediate. "Shame on you, Brenda," Mrs. Higgins from next door shouted. "We saw how Maya took care of her. You were only here to take pictures." Brenda looked around. Her realtor was leaving, the crew was packing up, the town was watching. She was no longer the successful executive. She was a cornered thief. The hidden advantage was fully revealed when Leo produced the trust documents I'd found in the sewing machine. "And just so we're clear, Brenda," Leo said, his voice ringing out, "the house and the orchard, they were never Mom's to give away in a new will anyway. They were in a survivorship trust. The moment Mom passed, the title vested automatically in Maya. You couldn't have sold this house if you tried." Brenda's jaw dropped. "What? No, I checked the records." "You checked the public index. You didn't check the private trust filings. Mom knew you'd look for the title, so she kept the trust private. You've been trying to sell a house you never even had a 1% stake in." The satisfying reversal was watching the realization sink in. Brenda had spent tens of thousands of her own money on lawyers, appraisers, and demolition crews to flip a property she didn't own. She had bankrupted herself trying to steal from me. I spent my whole bonus on the down payment for the new condo. I was counting on the sale of the orchard to cover the rest." "Then I guess you're going to be very disappointed, because the orchard is staying, and the barn is staying, and you're leaving." Logically, Brenda had no leg to stand on. The sheriff informed her that while the investigation into the forgery continued, she was barred from the property. "Pack your bags, Brenda," I said, mirroring the words she had said to me just days ago. "You have 1 hour. After that, anything left in this house will be considered a sentimental item for me to donate to charity." The satisfaction of seeing her walk into the house, head bowed while the town watched, was better than any money. I had destroyed her plan not by being as cruel as her, but by being as thorough as our mother. The house was saved. The anchor had finally sunk, and the wanderer was home. The legal fallout for Brenda was severe. The investigation into the forged will revealed that she had indeed bribed a local clerk to file the paperwork. The clerk lost his job and faced charges, and Brenda was eventually convicted of forgery and attempted grand larceny. She avoided prison through a plea deal, but she lost her corporate job and her professional license. She was forced to pay back every cent she had taken from Mom's accounts, which meant she had to sell her own car and the fancy condo she had barely moved into. Socially, she was finished. In our small town, reputation is everything. She moved to a different state, and I haven't heard from her since. Toby, her son, or rather her associates, all distanced themselves. She became a cautionary tale about the price of greed. As for the house, it became a sanctuary again. I used the trust money to restore the orchard. The junk sewing machine sits in the center of the sewing room, fully repaired. It turns out the motor wasn't shot, it just needed a little oil and some care. The emotional fallout was the hardest to mend. I had to forgive myself for not seeing the red flags sooner. I had to grieve my mother all over again, but this time without the shadow of Brenda's malice. I opened a small gallery in the barn, the one Brenda wanted to destroy. I call it the seam. I teach local kids how to sew and how to tell their own stories through art. The consequences of the betrayal were a complete restructuring of my life. I'm no longer a wanderer. I'm the steward of this land. I realized that Mom didn't just leave me a house. She left me a purpose. Every apple that grows in that orchard is a testament to the fact that justice, like a good seam, is often hidden, but it's the only thing that holds the world together. I'm sitting on the porch swing today. The sun is setting behind the apple trees, casting long, golden shadows across the grass. The air smells like wood smoke and ripening fruit. I feel a profound sense of peace. The reflection I see in the window isn't the tired, broken girl from the funeral. It's a woman who knows her own strength. I realized that personal growth doesn't come from winning a fight. It comes from knowing what is worth fighting for. I still have Mom's blue silk thread. I used a small piece of it to frame the letter I found. It hangs in the hallway, right next to a photo of Mom laughing in the orchard. I've learned that families are complicated. They are woven from light and dark threads. Brenda was a dark thread, but without her, I might never have discovered the depth of Mom's love and foresight. I don't hate Brenda anymore. I just feel pity for her. She was so busy looking for the price of things that she never understood their value. The ending isn't overdramatic. It's just me, closing the door to the barn and walking back to the Victorian house. The floorboards still creak, but now they sound like a welcome. I am home. The orchard is safe. The legacy is intact. And for the first time in a long time, I can hear the wind in the trees, and I know exactly what it's saying. I am Maya. I am the spirit of this place, and I am exactly where I am supposed to be. Inheritance is often about more than just money. It's about memory, respect, and the truth of a person's life. My story is a reminder that even when things seem hopeless and the people you trust turn against you, the truth has a way of coming to the surface. You just have to be willing to look in the places others call junk. I want to ask you, have you ever felt like an outsider in your own family? Have you ever had to fight for what you knew was right, even when the paperwork said otherwise? What hidden letters have you found in your own life? Share your stories in the comments below. let's talk about resilience, family, and the power of a mother's love. I read every comment, and your stories often inspire me as much as I hope mine inspire you. If you were moved by Maya's journey and the secret of the sewing machine, please hit the like button. It helps our community grow and ensures these dramas of real life reach the people who need to hear them most. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the dramas of real life. Remember, a seam is only as strong as the thread you don't see. Keep your threads strong. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.